Well, welcome to the Friday bubble, but today we've got an alternative. It's the Dom Pérignon bubble, and I'm always really excited when there's a new vintage launched. And how much more privileged can we be than having Vincent here to tell us a little bit about Dom Pérignon Plénitude 2 2004. Now this has some strong memories in my mind, and a couple of years ago Vincent was part of a big tasting we did with the outgoing chef de cave, Vincent Chaperon, and this was one of the stars of the show, but not at P2 stage, in its P1 stage. Now Vincent, do you remember going back to that?
Of course, yeah. 2004 has a long story. We've been talking so much together with Essie, Avlan as well, with you. So it's a vintage we all remember, so I'm very pleased to introduce you to this Plénitude 2.
And when we tasting it today, we have to remember it's followed 2002, an abundant harvest, lovely ripe fruits that got some incredible sort of credit. 2003, a complete contrast, a hot year, not so much volume. 2004, an abundant year. So the question is, in an abundant year, can you have, you know, that concentration? Because that was always one of the questions.
Yeah, this is a good question actually. And for me, 2004 is always a super opportunity to come back to the fact that that the vine is a multi-year plant. So there is impact of the previous year on the new harvest, on the new picking. So it was the case of 2004, at a very deep and profound way, because 2003 was a very extreme, as you mentioned, very aggressive year. Remember, there were two big events. One everybody remember, which was the heat wave in August.
Right.
So we have 3 weeks with temperature above 35 degrees during the night. But something people did not remember was the frost we had, which killed and destroyed 70% of the Chardonnay production. So now, if you take the sum of those two events, the vine was able to produce a lot of energy thanks to the sun and the warm temperature, but there were no fruits, or very few fruits to give nutrients. So what did the vine do? The vine kept the energy and was able to release it back in 2004 to what you were saying, an abundant quantity of grapes. So 2004 as a result is a unique year where we were able to have quantity and quality, quantity and maturity. I think I look back to the history of Champagne. There is perhaps in the modern era one other consecutive year like that, which are 69 and 70.
Right.
69 was warm as well, and 70 is very known by Champagne producer because it was the first year in the total history of Champagne we were picking above 10,000 kilograms per hectare. So.
And in 2004, the volume was it like 14,000 or was it 14 and a bit? So the interesting thing with always these years, what did one of the grapes do better than the other with the Pinot Noir or the Chardonnay?
Honestly, what I can say on 2004 is I told you about the vine and the grapes, but let's talk as well about the people and the vine grower. It was really a year of calm and renaissance, I would say. After 2003, which was so extreme, so challenging. So the mood was really a mood of, of calm and peacefulness. And nature in 2004, really gave us everything in the direction of the harmony for the Pinot Noir and for the Chardonnay. So we just had to accompany, what nature was giving us, and to be, humble to recognize that we didn't have to, to force nature in that year.
So there's a nice balance here.
Yeah, nice balance.
Is one of them a little more dominant?
47% Chardonnay and 53 Pinot Noir.
Okay, so pretty much similar, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, can we tell, it's always fascinating, because although when we taste Dom Pérignon and the grape varieties are nearly always roughly the same, they never seem the same when you taste it.
No, never.
So
I think it looks like it's a little bit more Chardonnay, no? What do you think?
It's got that beautiful, it's got all the yellow fruits,
Yeah. Yeah, the yellow, but as well citrusy, and it's very vibrant. 2004 has always been, a very vibrant Dom Pérignon in the direction of, the minerality, in the direction of the fresh fruitiness.
Right.
It's not as, as dark, as ripe as 2003 was. So it's super interesting to have an alternance of two opposed, wine and vintages from Dom Pérignon.
Now with Plénitude too, we always forget that we've seen this vintage probably 6 or 7 years ago. Now what are the big differences really? Because this has such an abundance of fruit. One of the things that always amazes me is the difference between P1 and P2. P2 just does this to me. The fruit explodes. Today it's the lemony.
Yeah, the lemony,
Lemony
it's still there,
bright.
Yeah.
But why does P2
It's still
do
very
this?
vibrant, yeah. So yeah, you're right. I mean, Nick, what is always amazing, especially on that vintage, is to see how it's still, youthful and vibrant after 18 years. It's a champagne of 18 years, 18 years of maturation. But let's go back to what I was saying about the nature and the harmony. I mean, that's true that 2004 offers us mainly, I remember the still wine, a sensation of volume and texture.
Right.
There's a lot of, I would say, airy, ethereal character. You remember the vintage was floating, like that, very elegant, dancing, we can say. So the challenge during the blend was to perhaps to put a little bit more, of the tension into the wine, because we like tension at Dom Pérignon, and you know that we like to have this opposition and contrast between structure and texture. So like it was more about texture, we selected grapes and juices and wine in order, to bring back some element of structure and tension. So in a way, the idea of the blend was to try to, to trace the contours of the sphere the nature was offering us. Then, if I go back to your question and the maturation, the additional, maturation on Plénitude 2, the extra maturation, I think it helps us to go on firming up the structure of the wine, to go on, adding, more depth, more structure to the initial, palatability of the vintage 2004. And today, if you focus on the wine, you will feel on the back palate, this depth, this additional depth.
One interesting thing that I must ask you a question about is P1 is aged on crown cap when it goes through its second fermentation. P2 isn't, is it?
Yeah.
And so this is aged on cork.
Yeah, it's on cork. We have always been at Dom Pérignon since the beginning. We have always been aging our patrimonial bottle on cork stopper. So when we decided more than 25 years ago, when Richard decided to open the Enotech, to open the patrimonial cellar to the world with this program, Enotech and then Plénitude, we went on. Doing what we used in the past, what we were doing in the past, so sealing. All the bottles were spending more than 10 years of maturation in our cellar, sealing them with cork stopper. Why? Because simply we observed that after 10 years, for more than 10 years of maturation, cork stopper is really adding more complexity and protecting the wine, the freshness in a better way.
So the cork kind of is denser potentially. Is that sort of a better way of?
It's changing through time.
Okay.
What we observe is the crown cap is more consistent because it's an industrial product with the cork, the plastic lay. But after a certain time, the 10 years, more than 10 years, the long-term maturation, the cork stopper is transforming itself. It's a natural product. It's moving and it's becoming, with the humidification of the cork, it's becoming, more and more airtight. And so it's preserving, and as well it is adding a little bit of complexity. So there is element of aroma, phenolics. So I mean, it's empirical. We did some trials and we were observing, we were comparing, and we observed that it's always better for P2.
Now, when we first poured this, all I could taste was lemon richness. And it's already, now we're seeing some of those rich Chardonnay, pineapple. And actually, it's getting quite, isn't that funny? Within 10 minutes, how many times do I say open a bottle an hour before you want to drink it? Even within 10 minutes.
So here you point out something super important. I'm always saying, this wine, I've been building it for you during 18 years. So please, as a mirror effect, give it the space and the time. I mean, if you don't give it this space and time, you will lose huge parts of the complexity. There are so much layers, so many layers in it. So the glass, the temperature, the time, the food, everything, all the context, the element of context are useful in order for the Plénitude 2 to inform its personality. So don't judge it too quickly.
There's a beautiful lightness in here. You talked about density, but a sort of like a dancing quality, and I think that's quite nice because it has power, as always P2 does. But there's a beautiful, I think it's some of that chalky mineral element. It kind of does.
Yeah, the intensity is a good word. It's not a powerful wine. It's intense. That means that intensity is coming, like you were saying, from precision. When you are talking about dancing, it is a precision, of the body of the wine, which is, giving an impression of grace, of elegance, certainly, but behind that there is a lot of intensity.
Brilliant. Have you tasted it today?
Yeah, of course. And it still needs to open, of course. I mean, it was disgorged in October of last year, so it has 11 months, of disgorgement. So the wine is just, reopening progressively. So we go back to what we have in our head at the first release with this, toastiness, which was really typical of 2004. I'm sure you liked, this mocha, brioche, toasty notes next to the citrusy. But again, on the palate, for me, what is obvious and what the wine has been winning with this time is the chewy, the density of
the density. So the question I asked at the beginning is, can big yields and concentration go hand in hand? And I think we have the answer.
We have the answer. The answer. And it is the holy grail of all winemakers. Having both at the same time, trying to be, intense but light, elegant but rich and powerful.
Brilliant. So we hope you all get a chance to buy a bottle of P2 2004. It's absolutely delicious. Vincent, thank you for some of the secrets.
Thank you.
And as Vincent said, he spent 18 years getting it ready. Don't rush before you open it and give it a little moment to breathe. Cheers.
Thank
you, Vincent.
Thank you, and to you. Cheers.